Fans of the Indiana Fever were incensed after Caitlin Clark was ranked lower than Paige Bueckers in ESPN's WNBA rankings on Thursday. That same evening, Clark returned to her home court for the first time since July 2025. Against a full-strength Dallas Wings team, she scored 21 points in 16 minutes on 66% shooting. However, the most intriguing aspect of the evening isn't even the box score. What she said following: "The game alters how you should watch her play in 2026, especially the part about the dishonest WNBA officials following a blatant foul by Atlanta Smith. Do you believe Caitlin will be treated fairly by the WNBA referees this year? Tell me in the comments section below." This is where Clark will launch, draw the foul, and make 3 free shots. 8th foul. First, Clark is moving a bit slowly up here. During player introductions at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the crowd noise was so loud that the audio from the phone camera was distorted when Clark's name was mentioned. The kind of insane shout you get when a fan base that has been holding onto something for 10 months gets to let it out all at once. Raucous, not courteous applause, not a sweet welcome back. Furthermore, 10 months is hardly an overstatement. Clark's body essentially collapsed onto her, up until 2025. Quad problems exacerbate ankle issues, leading to thigh troubles and ultimately resulting in a groin injury. She therefore only played in 13 games during the season until Indiana shut her down. Since July 2025, she has not participated in a whole home game at Gainbridge. Therefore, returning to that floor on Friday night carried a burden that is not reflected in any stat line.
Clark, post-game, to put it simply:
"You should never take the opportunity to don your uniform and lace up your shoes lightly, particularly after the events of last year. That isn't a prepared response from the media. That's a person whose body kept finding new ways to fail while she watched her team struggle for the most of a year. You were touching your knee while you were on the ground, and you then said a small untruth. Is it your ankle or knee? What specifically bothered you? I just hit my kneecap extremely hard." Additionally, the period of injuries created a strange void in the media discourse where Clark was treated almost as an afterthought at the top of the league's hierarchy. The day before this game, ESPN released their WNBA Top 50 rankings, thus making that feeling formal. Paige Bueckers came in at number 8, Sabrina Ionescu at number 6, and Clark at number 10. This is the same Clark who broke 62 records in her rookie season, finished 4th in the MVP voting as a rookie, set a record for assists in a single season, and was ranked by ESPN behind players who had worse seasons despite her injury last year. Not only were fans irritated, but they were also pointing to a particular figure as proof that the entire ranking process was agenda-driven nonsense meant to garner clicks prior to the start of the season. Thus, there was already some extra fuel in the crowd entering Gainbridge. Following the game, Coach Stephanie White announced that Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hall were both sitting out due to precautionary concerns. There was no structural damage associated with either absence. Dallas entered with all their might. Any straight reading of the final score without taking into account the fact that Indiana was already 2 starters short before tip-off tells you very little about this team's true situation. Our starting lineup is, we have Mai and Mo in there who weren't a part of the Fever last year, and then you have me, which I missed practically all of our games, and then Sophie missed a good amount of
our games as well.
In a sense, we're attempting to develop this chemistry and connection, and even if AB and Lex haven't played in the last 2 games, I still believe we can improve." However, none of that actually mattered to the audience. They came to see number 22 back on the court, and Clark gave them exactly what they came for with 21 points on 66% shooting in 16 minutes. 4 and more. However, there is a part of her performance that the box score doesn't adequately convey, and it's the part that reveals something fresh about how her style has changed since 2024. After the game, she left the locker room and complimented the officials for making the correct rulings after attempting 13 free throws in 16 minutes of play and making 11 of them. For everyone who did not raise a whistle when Clark was fouled for, that post-game remark required an explanation for 2 seasons in a row. Since ESPN put Bueckers at 8 and Clark at 10, let's discuss what actually transpired when Bueckers and Clark shared the court. The following night, they faced off against one another, and things didn't turn out the way the ranking had predicted. 2 of the 3 plays that Clark used to score his 21 points were made straight against Beckers. Defense, downward as Clark passes Beckers and reaches the rim last year. In the first, Clark made a blow-by layup after catching the ball on the outside, giving Becker one strong dribble and getting past her before Becker could reset her feet. No hesitation, no second red, just a guard who has been executing that precise play since her time at Iowa and hasn't yet met a defender who can cut it off cleanly when she pledges to go. Beckers is an effective defender. Simply put, Clark didn't give her enough time to take action. Once more, a lot of shoes were filled the previous year. Clark delivers a 3 after you catch it and shoot. For Kailin Kalak, bing, bang, bong. Simply, the second play was a wide-open 3, and this one was as much about Monique as it was about looking nice coming shoulder to shoulder. Billings as it pertained to Clark. When Clark had daylight, she buried it, going 2 or 3 from 3 that night after Billings installed a hard screen that totally freed her up on the perimeter. Without Billings doing the dirty job on screen, the play would not be successful. Credit where credit is due, but Clark still needed to plant her feet, catch it clean, and knock it down with defensive attention from another area of the floor. Clark set sail for the opposite end while the Smiths battled to pull it down.
The steal then arrived.
Before Dallas could turn around, Clark read Becker's passing path, moved into it, picked up the ball, and ran coast to coast for the layup. She thus took the ball straight away from the guy in one sequence. While the wings were still spinning, ESPN scored on the opposite end and ranked higher than her. All around, that deflection is not fortunate. That's Clark observing Becker's patterns and taking a calculated risk that paid off in the most obvious way. Now, it's important to be honest. Becker's had a good night. She shot the ball exceptionally effectively from 3, going 4 of 6 from beyond the arc in the first half alone. She finished with 20 points in 20 minutes, which is a significant improvement from her. She averaged just 3 throughout her debut season. Each game, 3 three-pointers are made. Dallas will be dangerous as a result of her increased range, which is a significant improvement in her game. In contrast, AZ Fudd scored 4 points in her Wings debut. With Fudd and Beckers playing on the same team, the Dallas backcourt was expected to be one of their advantages going into the season. Therefore, before that pairing is considered a solved equation, it still needs to be proven. However, Clark scored 21 points in 16 minutes in the head-to-head match. In 20 minutes, Beckers scored 20 points. It's true that Beckers required an additional 4 minutes to match Clark's production, and that math remains unchanged no matter how the night is reframed.
Clark was
more effective. She was more combative. And she accomplished it faster against a defender who had every right to be excited about playing in front of an away crowd that wanted her to outperform the star of the home squad. In the same 16 minutes, Clark made 13 trips to the free throw line and shot 66% from the field, indicating that Dallas was unable to keep her off the court or avoid foul trouble. And that combination is taking place, is what made her night so difficult to guard against at the same time. Clark congratulated the referees as he left the game. It's sincere appreciation rather than a courteous non-answer or the typical no-comment attitude you get from athletes attempting to maintain their professionalism. "I felt the refs did a really fantastic job tonight," she said to reporters. "I know there's a committee of individuals that I really wanted them to start calling things, and I think they did a tremendous job of that." That post-game comment definitely needed a second look for anybody who spent 2024 and 2025 watching Clark get grabbed, held, and bumped on shot attempts without a single whistle. That foul that resulted in your dismissal. I'm feeling good. To be honest, I felt the referees did a great job tonight. And I've kind of been. They had a committee of folks that really wanted them to start naming things coming into the season, and I think they did a fantastic job doing that. To be honest, I thought the others were excellent. What has changed then? In 2026, the WNBA focused its officiating efforts on landing space and shooting fouls. Furthermore, referees wouldn't simply disregard the letter by opening. At night. In this game, Atlanta Smith received a flagrant 1 call for a closeout that cut into Clark's landing zone during a 3-point attempt. After reviewing the call, the referees upgraded it. In a preseason game against a player making a strong closeout that defenders have been getting away with for years, that is the new norm applied in real time. The league is discussing more than just safeguarding shooters. They're calling it for Clark, in fact. She will make 3 free throws after launching and drawing the foul. 8th foul. Clark is moving a bit slowly up here. In 16 minutes, Clark made 13 free throw attempts. Furthermore, such a figure is not the result of chance. Clark's understanding of how the rules benefit her is what has changed. Thus, when she strikes the basket, or if she rises into her shooting motion and a defender doesn't give her space, she's getting the whistle instead of absorbing the contact and moving on. Dallas has a strong defense. Despite their inability to guard her without fouling her, they sent her to the line 13 times in less than a half of basketball. Additionally, the referees stopped them whenever they attempted to get physical. Since it's a preseason match, there will likely be more fouls called. I anticipate a decline in the number. I'm not sure how many fouls were called overall tonight. Additionally, the game may occasionally get choppy, but overall, I believe it will enhance the final result. It was both ways, and players aren't being held. They both performed a good job, in my opinion. Thus, but generally, I
Feel alright.
Here, Clark's own remarks hinted to something genuine. She particularly stated that she expects the foul statistics to decline once the regular season begins and defenders react, pointing out that players aren't being held. However, she continued to describe the general trajectory as good. That isn't a player expressing annoyance. This player has already determined how She is telling you quite candidly that she intends to use new rules that match her game. Clark relied largely on her pull-up game and three-point volume to score because they were the shots she completely controlled in prior seasons when she absorbed a lot of contact that was never called. She hit a 30-footer without a favorable whistle. She now has a third choice: free throws from forceful attacks that don't need a made shot from the field in any way. Defenders must choose their poison carefully. She will pull up if you give her room. She will draw the foul if you crowd her. Both results gave Indiana points. Dallas was unable to stop her using 2 entirely different strategies at the same moment after she converted 11 free throws in 16 minutes and shot 66% from the field. A difficult defensive dilemma is one of those factors being true on a particular night. It's practically impossible to resolve both of them being true at the same time throughout a 16-minute period unless you're ready to let her function entirely unchallenged. Furthermore, no WNBA defense is designed to defeat Clark in that way. She made 11 free throws and 6 field goals for a total of 21 points, which is a very odd scoring pattern.
Additionally,
in 2024, the referee's call that Atlanta Smith was flagrant would have been accepted. The regulations were not merely altered on paper. They also changed on the floor on Friday night. To be honest, it's worth gazing at the scoreboard even though Indiana lost. They lost points directly at issues that need to be resolved by May 9th, so don't panic about it. And although some of those issues can be resolved, others are more difficult issues that don't go away simply because the regular season begins in the second quarter. You guys lost a lot of points. What problems did you think you guys were having? Yes, I believe that they are merely softly defensive and a little lacking in discipline. We need to connect more as a group, Didn't feel like we were as cohesive as a team of 5, and you will have to assist your teammates. Our offense wasn't very strong, and it's difficult to set up your defensive stance and get to your matchup when you miss shots and lose the ball over. Defense is particularly challenging when they put us in rotations. It's a bit of both, but ultimately it seems like we simply had to improve your defense. Indiana was out-rebounded 45-26 by Dallas. That is a 19-rebound deficit, and it wasn't the result of a single poor period. The Wings continued to get second and third chances throughout the whole game, and Indiana's defense was unable to stop them. After the game, Stephanie White didn't sugarcoat it either. She told reporters that she overcame the fever, which is a rather straightforward method of claiming that the internal conflict was not close. Indiana's most dependable player on the glass is Boston. Both of them didn't play a single minute on Friday night, but Hall provides them another body who can compete for boards on the wing. Dallas quickly saw that the Fever were undersized from the first tip. The turnovers exacerbated the situation. The Wings converted 17 of them against a full-strength Dallas team. 42 free throw attempts due to carelessness. In addition to losing the rebounding contest, Indiana was giving Dallas additional possessions that resulted in free baskets at the line. We felt like we tried to throw it into a crowd and that players were dribble-happy and going for the home run play instead of the easy pass, White said, highlighting a particular issue with her team's offensive strategy. This is a habit that can be fixed, but it cost Indiana a lot in this game. In her preseason debut, Johnson excelled. Mitchell is shown here with the floater. The Fever were no longer only being hauled out there. 10 points were scored by Kelsey Mitchell. Maisha Hines-Allen finished with 7 points and 7 rebounds, while Michaela Timpson scored 11. Thus, despite being shorthanded, Indiana was able to get significant output from a number of players. That was insufficient to overcome a significant rebounding deficit and 17 turnovers, but it does show that the supporting cast can contribute when things are going well. And Dip's son, who received the block, is driven by Kiatu. Connell has made a few hits to the deck. Together with Clark, Raven Johnson was the real star of the evening. A rookie guard seldom records 5 thefts and 5 assists, and Clark especially called her out after the game, noting Johnson brings. That gives us a defensive advantage and consistently leads the squad in deflections. What do you think Raven provided to you, Caitlin and KK, for this second preseason game in terms of defense? The energy, 5 thefts tonight, and the fact that I knew she stole, layup, and shared the back with you. She simply gives us an advantage when it comes to defense. She consistently wins that category, and deflections. She will get it back for us if she makes a turnover, and we will score as a result. She therefore consistently provides the defensive presence and energy that we require. Yes, I would concur with KK. We chart every deflection, Therefore, even if it isn't considered a steal on the box, she is still receiving. Obtaining that, and we're discussing it in the locker room. You are aware that this has a significant impact on an offensive possession. Thus, it appears that Indiana can build on Johnson's defensive instincts. She might serve as a long-term anchor for their perimeter defense if she continues to grow at this rate. Even so, she still needs to improve her attacking game before. At this level, she is a complete player. After Friday night, supporters' concerns about roster construction, which they had been voicing during the off-season, didn't go away. The Fevers just don't have enough length when Boston sits down, and the rebounding disadvantage against Dallas intensified that discussion. Additionally, running extra plays won't alleviate that issue. She can contribute that defensive approach to this club, in my opinion. Every time, she picks up 94 feet. Every time she enters, she brings the enthusiasm. And, I believe it will be really beneficial for us if she just keeps doing that. Additionally, White told reporters that she thought Indiana's defense lacked urgency and was disjointed. And since it involves habits and focus rather than just matchups, that is the aspect that is more difficult to address with people's changes alone. Indiana's rebounding statistics improve and their defensive versatility increases with Boston and Hall back in the lineup. However, until White finds a way to eradicate them in practice, this team's turnover problems and propensity to force plays rather than take the simple route will accompany them into the regular season. In 16 minutes, Clark scored 21 points, went straight after Beckers, complimented the referees, and performed all of. Boston and Hall were sitting on the bench in their street clothes. Given everything her body endured in 2025, she acknowledged after the game that she felt well after landing hard on her kneecap. This is the kind of news that matters much more than the final result. Within hours of the final buzzer, some pundits had already moved her up from 10th to 4th in their updated rankings. It's almost time for the regular season kickoff.
Boston
and Hall are coming back, and someone at ESPN needs to update a very uncomfortable spreadsheet. Do you believe Caitlin will be treated fairly by the WNBA referees this year? Tell me in the comments section below. Turn on all alerts, like, and subscribe so you never lose out. On the screen, click the video, and we'll see you in the upcoming